Hey, you guys, it's David at Bali and Beyond, and the last little while I've been reading from the book "The Power of Now" by Eckhart Tolle, and it's an amazing book. Can I say? And I was thinking today, a couple of friends have said recently, David, why don't you write a book? And I don't know why I would want to write a book when there's so many great books already written. And maybe one day we'll see. But for now, I think what's best is if I read, um, and I'm really clear that for sure the person who's going to benefit the most from this reading is me. I can't, if you guys watch and you get something from it, wow, I'm excited, for that possibility. But really, when I'm reading to you, what happens is that I have to be, super present in the reading, and so part of that allows me to really, assimilate what I'm reading. And I think Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, which was his first book, is amazing, and has a lot of possibilities for, for all of us when we're going through stuff in life and we're trying to figure out what's going on, and we're holding on to old beliefs, and we're full of fear, and we're trying to get our way, and we're scared often in life, and pretending we're not. And going to our doctor and have our doctor say, well, you have anxiety, take 2 of these, and so we're masking, and or we're going into addictions because we don't want to feel, and all of that stuff is it's inside, and so we need to learn about how to operate the equipment, and I think that the truth is that most of us have no idea about how magnificent the equipment is that we have. And, our minds are a beautiful instrument, and our bodies. I think it's difficult for us to see how amazing we are. And Eckhart actually points out in such great, so masterly, how we can access the true self, and get past the mind and the thinking part of ours. Not that the mind isn't amazing, because it is, and it's a great tool, and it just has somehow got the front seat. It got in the driver's seat, and if we can, through meditation, if we can get in a place where we discover the who the boss really is, and that that inner self, that still small voice, that connection with spirit. I think we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and that we want to. Let me see, my little phone was just ringing, and which is not supposed to ring because I just put it on airplane mode. But anyway, here we go. So I'm going to read a bit. You guys listen along if you like, and any comments would be appreciated. And yeah, that's it. So we're on page 41, ego identification with the pain body. He's talking about the process. He says that the process that I have just described is profoundly powerful yet simple. It could be taught to a child. And hopefully one day it will be one of the first things children learn in school. Once you have understood the basic principle of being present as the watcher of what happens inside you, and you understand it by experiencing it, you have at your disposal the most potent transformational tool. Imagine, Melanie, hi, Melanie, yeah, welcome. That's a great, I'm going to read that paragraph again. The process that I have just described is profoundly powerful yet simple. it could be taught to a child, and hopefully one day it will be one of the first things children learn in school. Once you have understood the basic principle of being present as the watcher of what happens inside you, and you understand it by experiencing it, you have at your disposal the most potent transformational tool. Wow. This is not to deny that you may encounter intense inner resistance to disidentifying with your pain, disidentifying from your pain. This will be the case particularly if you have lived closely identified with your emotional pain body for most of your life, and the whole or a large part of your sense of self is invested in it. Imagine. What this means is that you have made an unhappy self out of your pain body and believe that this mind-made fiction is who you are. In that case, unconscious fear of losing your identity will create strong resistance to any disidentification. In other words, you would rather be in pain, be in the pain body, than take a leap into the unknown and risk losing the familiar unhappy self. Imagine. He kind of nails it, doesn't he? He does. If this applies to you, observe the resistance within yourself. Observe the attachment to your pain. Be very alert. Observe the peculiar pleasure you derive from being unhappy. Observe the compulsion to talk or think about it. The resistance will cease if you make it conscious. The resistance, it says, will cease if you make it conscious. You can then take your attention into the pain body. Stay present as the witness, and so initiate its transmutation. Seems pretty simple. I think we could stop this book now. We've got the details. But we'll read on, because I think he's going to tell us the same thing over and over again, 37 different ways. Only you can do this. Nobody can do it for you. But if you're fortunate enough to find someone who is intensely conscious, if you can be with them and join them in the state of presence, that can be helpful and will accelerate things. So I really get that being with a conscious teacher is very important, and I've been blessed in my life with the presence of some really, some very conscious people, and I would have to say that probably that has been helpful, for me to see me. In this way, your own light will quickly grow stronger. When a log that has only just started to burn is placed next to one that is burning fiercely, and after a while they are separated again, the first log will be burning with much greater intensity. After all, it is the same fire. To be such a fire is one of the functions of a spiritual teacher. Some therapists may also be able to fulfill that function, provided that they have gone beyond the level of mind and can create and sustain a state of intense conscious presence while they're working with you. Imagine. Hey, welcome. Hey. Love to hear where you're from, you guys. Anyway, we're on page 33, The Origin of Fear. Anybody interested in the origin of fear? This is from the book, Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now. The origin of fear. Got to be careful when we hear of the origin of fear, then we don't have any excuse to hang on to it. The origin of fear. You mentioned fear. This is a question that a student's asking him. You mentioned fear as being part of our basic underlying emotional pain. How does fear arise? And why is there so much of it in people's lives? And isn't a certain amount of fear just healthy? Healthy self-protection? If I didn't have a fear of fire, I might put my hand in it and get burned. Interesting, eh? Hey, Santa from Montreal, living in Calgary. Great. The reason, it says, he's answering the question, the reason why you don't put your hand in the fire is not because of fear. It's because you know you'll get burned. So it's consciousness. You don't need fear to avoid unnecessary danger, just a minimum of intelligence. and common sense. For such practical matters, it is useful to apply the lessons learned in the past. Now, if someone threatened you with fire or with physical violence, you might experience something called fear. This is an intrinsic shrinking back from danger, but not the physiological condition of fear that we are talking about here. The psychological condition of fear is divorced from any concrete and true immediate danger. It comes in many forms, in unease, in worry, in anxiety, nervousness, and tension, and dread, and phobia, and so on. This kind of psychological fear is also of something that might happen, not of something that is happening now. You're in the here and now, while your mind is in the future. You are in the here and now, while your mind is in the future. This creates an anxiety gap. And if you are identified with your mind and have lost touch with the power and simplicity of the now, that anxiety gap will be your constant companion. Gosh, you can always cope with the present moment, but you cannot cope with something that is only a mind projection. You cannot cope with the future. Moreover, as long as you are identified with your mind, the ego runs your life. As I pointed out earlier, because of its phantom nature and despite elaborate defense mechanisms, the ego is very vulnerable and insecure. It sees itself as constantly under threat. This, by the way, is the case even if the ego is outwardly very confident. Now remember that an emotion is the body's reaction to your mind. Well, what message is the body receiving continuously from the ego? The false mind-made self from the ego, the false mind-made self. Danger, I'm under threat. So that's the message that the ego is saying to the body. Danger, I'm under threat. And what is the emotion generated by this continuous message? Fear, of course. Wow. So I guess he's nailed it, hasn't he? Fear, he says, seems to have many causes. Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of being hurt, and so on. But ultimately, all fear is ego's fear of death, of alienation. To the ego, death is always just around the corner. In this mind-identified state, fear of death affects every aspect of your life. For example, even such a seemingly trivial and normal thing as the compulsive need to be right in an argument. Hey Santa, he says he loves this book. Hello again, Kim from the UK. Thanks, Kim. Nice for dropping in. Super. Where was I? For example, even such a trivial and normal thing as the compulsive need to be right in an argument and make other persons wrong, defending the mental position with which you are identified is due to the fear of death. Imagine this desire to be right. If you're identified with a mental position, then if you are wrong, your mind-based sense of self is seriously threatened with annihilation. So you, as the ego, cannot afford to be wrong. To be wrong is to die. Wars have been fought over this, and countless relationships have broken down. The need to be right. Okay, Kim, I plan to read this to you every night. That's right, I'm going to. Super. Kim's in the UK, and so what time is it there? It's late. Once you have disidentified from the mind, whether you are right or wrong makes no difference to your sense of self at all. Isn't that great? That is like super, that is a gift. The freedom to not know, the freedom to be to really to not know. It's beautiful to surrender. It's a beautiful possibility, and it's certainly something that's happened for me. Yeah. Hey, Jason, thanks for dropping in, my friend. Okay, here we go. Page 44, The Power of Now. And Jason, I've been waiting for you to come. I'm reading this for you. Kim in the UK says, was this book based on me? No, but the man who wrote it was from the UK. And so you might be relating. And she says it's midnight there. Awesome. Once you have identified from your mind, once you have disidentified, from your mind, whether you are right or wrong makes no difference to your sense of self at all. So the forcefully compulsive and deeply unconscious need to be right, which is a form of violence, will no longer be there. You can state clearly and firmly how you feel or what you think, but there will be no aggressiveness or defensiveness about it. Nice. Your sense of self is then derived from a deeper and truer place within yourself, not from the mind. Watch out for any kind of defensiveness within yourself. What are you defending? An illusory identity, an image in your mind, a fictitious entity. By making this pattern conscious, by witnessing it, you disidentify from it. In the light of your consciousness, the unconscious pattern will then quickly dissolve. This is the end of all arguments and the power games, which are so corrosive to relationships. Power over others is weakness disguised as strength. True power is within, and it is available to you now. So, anyone who is identified with their mind and therefore disconnected from their true power, their deep self-rooted in being, will have fear as their constant companion. The number of people who have gone beyond mind is as yet extremely small, so you can assume that virtually everyone you meet or know lives in a state of fear. Imagine. Only the intensity of it varies. It fluctuates between anxiety and dread at one end of the scale and a vague unease and distant sense of threat at the other. Most people become conscious of it only when it takes on one of its more acute forms. So when it comes, and so that it's crippling, so that it takes you out of the game, I mean, that's kind of a gift, because that's when we really, friggin' see it. It's kind of a gift, yeah. Panic attacks, that's right, Kim. Panic attacks, and it's like, oh my gosh, where did that come from? And I think when that happens, it means that spiritually we're moving. Stuff is happening. It's exciting, and it may not feel exciting, and but it is exciting, and we feel it, and it's nice if we have a support group, to some people around us that can help us when we're dealing with that, and and help us connect with the that infinite intelligence, with that space in the now, the thing behind the thing. So Kim has had, you have them all the time, Kim. Well, this book may be helpful. It may be helpful. So here we are, page 45, the ego's search for wholeness. Another aspect, it says, of the emotional pain that is intrinsically part of the egoic mind is a deep-seated sense of self, a deep-seated sense of lack or incompleteness, of not being whole. In some people, this is conscious. In others, unconscious. In some people, this is conscious. In others, it's unconscious. If it is conscious, it manifests as the unsettling and constant feeling of not being worthy or good enough. If it is unconscious, it will only be felt indirectly as an intense craving, wanting, and needing. In either case, people will often enter into a compulsive pursuit of ego gratification and things to identify with in order to fill this hole they feel within. So they strive after possessions and money and success and power and recognition or a special relationship, basically so that they can feel better about themselves, feel more complete. But even when they attain all these things, they soon find that the hole is still there, that it is bottomless. Then they are really in trouble because they cannot delude themselves anymore. They can anymore. Well, they can and do, but it gets more difficult. As long as the ego mind is running your life, you cannot truly be at ease. You cannot be at peace or fulfilled except for brief intervals when you obtain what you wanted, when a craving has just been filled. Since the ego is a derived sense of self, it needs to identify Since the ego is a derived sense of self, it needs to identify. I lost my spot. Hang on. With external things. Okay, it needs to identify with external things. It needs to be both defended and fed constantly, feeding the ego. The most common ego identifications have to do with possessions, the work you do, and social status and recognition, knowledge and education, and physical appearance, and special abilities, and relationships, and personal and family histories, and belief systems, and often also political and nationalistic, and racial and religious, and other collateral identifications. None of these are you. None of these are you. I want to tell you a quick story. Most of my life I've ridden Harley Davidsons, and I was somewhat identified with being a guy who owned a Harley. And sometime in the last 3 or 4 years, it disappeared. Not the Harley, it's still in my garage, but the identification with it. Sometimes I go look at it in the garage and I think, wow, who owns that? Because it doesn't feel like it's part of me anymore. And when I get on it and go for a ride, it's freaking awesome, but it's not, I don't feel any connection with it the way that I did. It was kind of part of me. It was part of my story, and don't need it anymore. It's pretty cool. But I still have it, but I haven't even ridden it this year, and I'm sure I will. But anyway, it's just a story of how we identify with things, and I've been identified with being a parent, and all kinds of things, being in recovery, there's a little specialness about all of that stuff, or being a spiritual student, so all of that can be an identity, and I feel pretty blessed that for the most part, many of those things have left, excuse me, being somebody's boyfriend or somebody's partner, I've done it all and been identified with it. It's nice to let it go. It says here, do you find that frightening, or is it a relief to know this? All of these things you will have to relinquish sooner or later. Perhaps you find it as yet hard to believe, and I'm certainly not asking you to believe that your identity cannot be found in any of those things. You will know the truth of it for your own self. You will know it at the latest. Yes, that's right. You will know the truth of it for yourself. You will know it at the latest when you feel death approaching. Death is a stripping away of all that is not you. The secret of life is to die before you die and find that there is no death. Imagine that. He hid the secret of life right on the last line of that chapter. Imagine. He said it. He called it the secret of life. The secret of life is to die before you die. So total surrender. Total surrender. And I get that. Die before you die and find that there is no death. Wow. I think that's it for today. Short one. Just, we're now at chapter, about to go into chapter 3. So I think I'll call it for today. And maybe tomorrow we'll do a longer reading. See if I can read the whole chapter tomorrow. And how long is that? Moving deeply into the now. It's quite long. Oh, it's really long. Maybe not. But, I do want to get it really into this. Oh my gosh. It's a huge chapter. I can't read the whole thing tomorrow. But yeah, should tomorrow come and we still be here and the power's on and we're ready to go, I will read longer tomorrow, maybe for an hour or more. So love you guys. And Kim, thanks for dropping in again and being with us. And if you could follow us on YouTube too, I'm going to post all of these up on YouTube. And fun. I'm enjoying doing this. And thank you so much for dropping in. And tomorrow we'll read again. So, okay, short and sweet. Thanks, Kim. You're right. All right. Love you guys. Bye.